Swear diddy down. Big Mandy, yeah? Oh my days. And Sharon, come on. Yeah, Sally Smith. Alice, I see you. Muna, Angelina, Jessica, Jamie, Beatrice, Celeste. Am I saying that correctly? Yeah? Celeste. Thank you for being here. So yeah, man, started on time today, which is epic. We got Chris Reed with us doing all the technical stuff behind the scenes as my co-host. So thank you for doing that, brother. I've also recorded it already, which is amazing. Every single one I've forgot to record, which is cool. So we've got 14 people with us. How epic. I hope you've all been good. It's been another crazy week on the news and with the energies. We've got warlords taking over half of the world right now. We've got intense energies and downloads and integrations happening. So just thank you for being here with me, taking the time. As always, let me just do the disclaimer. The disclaimer is that, this isn't an SGI meeting. I'm not being asked by the SGI to study Buddhism online. I just kind of taken my initiative to kind of just wanted to open up my knowledge of Buddhism using this book to guide me, to help guide you, hopefully. So we're going to be here for about an hour, maybe a little less. Also, the author of this book, his name's Johnny Gilbert. He's a friend of mine. He's actually in my area as a Buddhist. He's one of the Buddhist leaders in my area. But again, he didn't ask me to do this. He was overwhelmed. I told him, he was like, what are you doing? So, no one's asked me to do this. I just wanted to do that as a disclaimer. But now that's out of the way. Let me read the guidance for today. 1st of September, brand new energies coming in. August is over. Winter's coming in. I'm sure all of you are feeling the coldness in the air a little bit now, which isn't nice at all, but we keep it moving. Thank you for being here, Sophie. I see ya. So yeah, let me go straight in, and I'm going to read two pieces of guidance today. One at the end. We're going to chant at the end for 5 minutes as well, and I'm going to read something now. And they're both just happen to be in tune with children. Obviously, September, the month that children go back to school. So yeah, man, let's read this together. So it says, we must establish the correct standard of value upon the foundation of the dignity of life. Let me say that again. We must establish the correct standard of value upon the foundation of the dignity of life. Leaders of society, including politicians and school teachers, should teach children the distinction between good and evil and lead society in the direction of goodness. Today, however, the higher the status that people achieve, the more wrongdoings they tend to commit. Those in high status think only of their selfish interests while exploiting ordinary people. The me-first attitude prevails. Looking at those adults, children cannot possibly grow upright. Such social trends, in a sense, are destroying our children. Adults must first reflect on their own way of life. Without self-reflection, adults are not qualified to scold children. So yeah, and I'm noticing, especially over the last 5 years, all the children that are coming through now, they're all older than us. I hope you know that. Their souls are so intensely deep and spiritual and aware, and yeah, it's beautiful to see. So just to give you a bit of a content of what we're doing today, we're going to finish the second half of Chapter 2, which is about Nichiren, which is the Buddha of the latter day of the law. And what the latter day of the law is, just to remind you all, is it's a period of time away from the death of Shakyamuni, and they're kind of the periods of time. There was the former day, the middle day, and the latter day. The former day, people they were around Shakyamuni, so they thought differently. The middle day, the priesthood started to take control, and now in the latter day of the law, we are completely disconnected from our spirit. It's one of the most difficult times to be alive. And so Nichiren Daishonin was the Buddha considered to be born in this age, and we are also born in this age, the latter day of the law. So we're going to read about 17 pages today, and we're going to finish up Chapter 2 so that we can start Chapter 3 next week, which is called What is Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, which is, I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of questions about that. But today, just so I can read you the little subsections we're going to be talking about. The first one is called, Where does the idea of the original Buddha come from? The second is, What is a Buddha, according to Daisaku Ikeda, who's the current SGI president? Original enlightenment, the idea that we're already Buddhas and the problems that can bring, because it can bring a lot of problems. Trust me, when you go around telling everyone they're Buddhas, the ego can get involved quite easily. The next section is called the Master of Metaphors, which is going to be touching on Nichiren and how he used metaphors to encourage us. The next is going to be, how did Nichiren change? After that, we're going to be talking about a new self-understanding of who we are. The next subsection after that, we're going to be talking about his exile and what happened after his exile, because there was a time in Tatsunokuchi in Japan where he was actually exiled because he was just becoming too powerful and telling all the priests, you got to stop telling everyone they got to pay you to go to the Buddha land. It's not correct. We're all Buddhas. And he was like revolutionary in that way. So the Japanese government took him to exile, and his life after exile deeply transformed, because basically, I've told you this before in the old sessions, but they went to behead him, and this is on all Japanese records away from Buddhism. When they went to behead him, like a meteorite went across the sky, an orb, and every single person there, even the executioner, they dropped to his knees, and they became his disciples then and there. And it's considered a time where Nichiren basically casted off his transient version of who he was and really revealed himself as the Buddha of the latter day of the law. And it's sometimes when I tell that to people, they're like, oh, it sounds like magic. And it's like, no, like we all have deeply synchronistic moments. It's just like he just had a real serious one, you know. And I guess as a leader of some Buddhists, it was important for him to have that. After that, we'll be talking about revealing his actual Buddhahood and what he did to reveal his Buddhahood after that process. And then we have 3 more it sounds like a lot of subsections, but it's only 17 pages. They're like all, you know, only small chapters. But what is Buddhahood? Very important, because what is Buddhahood? A lot of people think it's some transcended place, or like you can only be in Buddhahood if like the Dalai Lama and you decide to cut your hair off and put some robes on. But that is the furthest thing from Buddhahood. Buddhahood is achieved in South London. You know, it doesn't have to be in some like ashram. So we're going to be talking about what is Buddhahood. The next will be respect for our own nature. How do we respect our own innate Buddha nature? And finally, we're going to be talking about who are the bodhisattvas of the earth. Many people have heard about this word, bodhisattvas, and it's normally considered some mysterious metaphor in the Lotus Sutra, and it's these like ascended beings. But I'm telling you, all 15 of us right here are bodhisattvas, and so hopefully I can encourage you with this book to remind you, we're all bodhisattvas. So yeah, let's go jumping straight in as usual. Let me share my screen. One second. I need to just open it up. Cool. All right. So. So let me know if you can see that. Yeah, cool. So if you got the book with you, we're on page 55. So just bear with me. So we're going to be jumping in quite deep straight away, but you know that's how it always is with me, so I trust it. Come on, zoom in, mate. So where does the idea of an original Buddha come from? The concept of a primordial Buddha or Adi Buddha comes originally from Vajrayana Buddhism. The concept could well have entered Nichiren Shoshu by way of the Japanese Shingon sect or esoteric Tendai teachings, which had already incorporated this belief. Often viewing the Buddha, mate, this is a difficult word, Mavarokana, as their first primordial Buddha. In addition, Nichiren Shoshu has traditionally interpreted Nichiren's references to Lord Shakyamuni of true Buddhism, or the eternal Buddha Shakyamuni, as meaning Nichiren. Quite a leap of interpretation when Nichiren never refers to himself in these references. Matsudo argues, through examination of Nichiren Daishonin's writing, that the Buddha Shakyamuni who attained enlightenment in the remote past is viewed by the Daishonin as the revelation of the eternal existence of the great universal law of Buddhahood. Let me say that again. It's really it's quite catchy. So Matsudo, who is a scholar he's alive now, he's a scholar in Buddhism. He argues through the examination of Nichiren Daishonin's writings that the Buddha Shakyamuni, who attained enlightenment in the remotest past, is viewed by the Daishonin, who's the Daishonin of the latter day of the law in our period, as the revelation of the eternal existence of the great universal law of Buddhahood. In other words, the eternal Shakyamuni, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, and the state of Buddhahood, the mystic law, are all one and the same and are all accessible to humanity. The law is therefore primary, not the person. That sentence right there, I'm actually going to get that tattooed on me in Chinese at one point. Maybe slap it right here on my neck. The law is therefore primary, not the person. And again, in, you know, many different forms of Buddhism and many different Western religions, it's always the person, you know, that is primary, not the law or the Bible. It's like, you know, the priest or the person that has that divine connection with the ascended master. But in analyzing Nichiren's writings and the Lotus Sutra, it becomes very clear that Shakyamuni, the classic Buddha, the chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, which is the name of the Lotus Sutra, and Buddhahood and the mystic law are all in one. So Shakyamuni is my life, in a sense, the life that he attained, which is important to know. In The Object of Devotion for Observing the Mind, which is a gosho that Nichiren wrote, Nichiren writes, Shakyamuni's practices and virtues he consequently attained, these two laws of cause and effect are all contained within the 5 characters of Myoho Renge Kyo. If we believe in these 5 characters, we will naturally be granted the same benefits which he has. This is the case. This is the cause of all Buddhas and must be activated within an ordinary human being. As a result, any Buddhas who are no longer also an ordinary being are not of this world, such as Amida, I'm not going to say that word, it's crazy, Maitreya, and even Shakyamuni in a defiled form. So there's a lot of people that, again, pray to these Buddhas like externally of themselves, like Amida Buddha, please save me. But Nichiren is saying a true Buddha aren't these people, and like as a result, Buddhas who are no longer ordinary aren't of this world, so we can't even relate to them. And Nichiren was very much about revealing our innate internal Buddhahood. There are not 2 separate types of Buddhas, one mystical and supernatural and one mundane. Only in the ordinary human being can Buddhahood be revealed. See, we're on the second one already, it's not too long. What is Buddha according to Akida? So again, Daisaku Akida is the current living president of the Soka Gakkai International, and he is the disciple of Josei Toda, who basically pioneered the SGI, the Soka Gakkai after World War II. So Daisaku Akida, the president of SGI, has advocated this approach and most clearly expressed it in his dialogues from the 1990s, The Wisdom of the Lotus Sutra. Majestic Buddhas are but illusions that have nothing to do with reality. The only actual Buddhas are ordinary people who each moment bring forth the eternal life force of time without beginning. There is no Buddha existing apart from the people. A Buddha set above the people is a fake and expedient means. Akida also confirms the meaning of the eternal Buddha as the very life of the universe that continues to function ceaselessly. Let me say that again, I love that. Akida also confirms the meaning of the eternal Buddha as the very life of the universe that continues to function ceaselessly. Akida directly relates the term remotest past to not a finite moment in the far distance, but in the far distant past, but eternity in the moment. Thus, every time we chant to the Gohonzon, we can live that eternal moment. Sorry, I'm just trying to let some people in, and I just pressed out of that. My bad. So each day we start anew from time without beginning, the starting point of life. The true reality of life is this original source, which is Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Akida offers a humanized way of perceiving the eternal Buddha as ultimate truth revealed within ourselves. Original enlightenment. So, this correlation between ordinary people and the eternal cosmic law is not to be confused with the medieval Tendai Buddhist concept of original enlightenment. In original enlightenment theory, ordinary people are inherently Buddhas just as they are, without the need for any practice or action. All phenomena are just as they manifest, expressions of the true reality. Nichiren undoubtedly drew on this tradition and vocabulary from the Tendai school as he enrolled and trained as a Tendai monk. However, his emphasis on practice to reveal inherent Buddhahood and his challenge to the authorities of his day starkly contrast with original enlightenment thought, which has been considered to encourage passive acceptance of the social reality by merely acknowledging that we are all already Buddhas. So this is a kind of a deep concept, especially if you're not too aware of the idea of Buddhism. But there's this idea in Buddhism, in all different sects, of original enlightenment, that we all are originally enlightened, which I believe in. You know, we all have that potential. However, as it says here, let me find the sentence. it says here, contrast with original Enlightenment thought, which has been considered to encourage passive acceptance of the social reality by merely acknowledging that we are already Buddhas. So in a sense, you could easily look at the way the world is right now and be like, oh, well, we're all Buddhas. We're all going to just attain a Buddhahood anyway. We don't have to do nothing about it. It's just inside us. And that is without doubt one of the worst attitudes you could take. But within certain forms of Buddhism, and that's the way that they've kind of interpreted Shakyamuni and Nichiren's words. So I just wanted to give you some concept, because this is deep stuff, but this is kind of like fundamentals to Buddhism. The idea that we're all enlightened, we're all the Buddha, and you can see actually how easily that can then be manipulated. So, an awareness of original Enlightenment thought is relevant to Nichiren Buddhists for two main reasons. First, it allows practitioners within SGI to be on their guard against a similar passive view that we are all Buddhas without the need for practice creeping in to cultural trends and terminologies. Secondly, the debate in academic circles surrounding the validity of some of Nichiren's writings has been driven by a sectarian passion to remove Nichiren from any association with original Enlightenment and therefore individuate him from the Tendai school of Buddhism. This move was spearheaded by Yorin Asai, an academic from Risho University, which is affiliated with Nichiren Shu, the Minabu school of Nichiren Buddhism. So that's not the SGI, a different version. They interpret it very differently to us. Asai rejected as later forgeries any writings by Nichiren that implies any reference to original Enlightenment. Original Enlightenment thought in a sectarian attempt to assert Nichiren Shu's independence from the rival school of Tendai Buddhism. His approach became academic orthodoxy for many years. More recent scholarships, including Jacqueline Stone of Princeton University, has challenged this approach. The rejection of certain texts and its underlying motive, unimpeachable writings that Asai could not mention, such as the object of devotion for observing the mind, and on establishing the correct teachings for the peace of the land, clearly contain elements of original Enlightenment thought. And yet, Nichiren creates a totally new paradigm whilst incorporating an appreciation of the universal capacity for Buddhahood. It must be revealed through an individual's faith. This is for us now. Get your highlighter out. Buddhahood. It must be revealed through an individual's faith, practice, and study. And when the individual reveals their Buddhahood, so too will their environment. I'm going to read that one more time. Because we all have Buddhahood. Yes, it's all inherent. But it must be revealed through an individual's faith, practice, and study. And when the individual reveals their Buddhahood, so too will their environment. And remember last week how I ended it. If you're chanting, if you're praying, if your faith is weak, it's like hitting a bell with a toothpick. And that vibration will only vibrate back weak. But if you whack it with a strong bell hammer, it will vibrate strongly back to you. And that's where you can start to reveal and bring out your Buddhahood. It's not just as simple as going, I joined the SGI, I'm a Buddhist now, everything's good. Like, I'm going to get all my dreams. That's just a very foolish, egoic, simple way of seeing spirituality. So anyway, it must be revealed through an individual's faith, practice, and study, and when the individual reveals their Buddhahood, so too will their environment. Nichiren writes on establishing the correct teaching, in the moment those who embrace faith in the Lotus Sutra, the threefold world will all become the Buddha land, and the regions in the 10 directions will all become the treasure realms. There seems not a little irony that it was a scholar from a Nichiren school who unfairly attacked Nichiren's writings to advance the school's sectarian ambition. Regardless, it should be acknowledged that some works, most notable transfer documents, which, again, had a sectarian motive behind their creation, may later be forgeries. However, Nichiren's treatises and writings to his followers, taken as a whole, offer a consistent richness of thought. As the practical philosophy embodied in the SGI, they have offered profound, life-changing inspiration to Buddhist practitioners over the years. This is none more than with the Onji Kuden, the record of the orally transmitted teachings. And as Nichiren Buddhists, we have kind of what we call the Gosho, which is literally the writings of Nichiren from himself to his followers. And then there's another kind of massive book that we have that's important to us called the Onji Kuden, which is the record of the orally transmitted teachings. So it's a record of what he said by his top disciple, Nikko Shonin. But I'm pretty sure, to be honest, he's going to say it right here. So as a secondary source material, it is considered to be the notes taken by Nikko Shonin, which was his main brother, from Nichiren's lecturings on the Lotus Sutra. In that sense, it may not be the exact words that the Daishonin used. Moreover, Risho University again have taken particular aim at the Onji Kuden, claiming it to be a later forgery because of its use of original Enlightenment style language and because the first verified version that has so far been discovered comes from the 16th century. And of course, Nichiren is from the 13th century. In the SGI translation by Burton Watson, it is readily acknowledged that the easiest known version dates from a copy made in 1539 by a priest from the 8 chapters branch of Nichiren school. Regardless of its origins, the Onjikuden stands as a philosophically consistent with Nichiren's teachings, emphasizing our inherent Buddha nature and the practice of chanting Daimoku to reveal it. That's chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. The possibility that it is a rearrangement of Nichiren's lectures by his or later disciples remains, but it has been pointed out that Shakyamuni and Christ left no autographed writings at all. Yet should every sutra or scriptural teaching of Jesus be rejected out of hand as pious forgeries rather than examined for their philosophical worth? And I love that. Something like, no one can actually 100% say whether this is going to be that Nichiren said that regarding the translations. But when I first read this in January 2020, that sentence really hit me, man. Like, Christ left no autographed writings at all, yet should every sutra or scriptural teachings of Jesus be rejected out of hand as pious forgeries rather than just examined for the philosophical worth. I love that. To reject the Onjikuden would be to lose such beautiful expressions of SGI philosophy as cherry, peach, plum, and damson, the metaphor of our own uniqueness and value. Just as each fruit has its own unique qualities and tastes. And I love that we always say this, people are like, I want to be like you, man. And I'm like, nah, man, cherry, peach, plum, and damson. 4 of the most beautiful different fruits. They all express their own unique qualities. Don't ever try to be a cherry when I'm a peach. You know what I'm saying? We get what I'm trying to say. Be an orange or be a cherry. Like, don't copy people. And the more you recognize that you've got your own innate beautiful flavors and energies, and just like the cherry, the plum, the peach, and the damson, the more you step into your own eternal self, the more you can be inspired. Like, I'm inspired by Sensei. I'm inspired by Nichiren, but I'm not trying to be Sensei or Nichiren. I'm trying to be the best version of myself. And I know it sounds simple, but I really believe, kings and queens, that most people aren't doing this. And the more we really just step into our own individuality, and really listening to our heart. I talk about this a lot, creating our a brain to heart coherence where we can trust our own heart. It could be like, oh wow, I can't do this job anymore. I know I'm scared. I don't know what the future's going to bring, but we need to get to a point where we have that strong trust in our own life, and that starts with believing in our own individuality. Cherry, peach, plum, and damson. So anyway, in addition, there exist hundreds of smaller fragments of Nichiren's writings in which the meaning is indecipherable. If they were complete, would we have other teachings to supplement our practice? It's again, like, if he wrote, like, if there was more letters that he had and we had them now, would our practice be different? Who knows? But at the same time, I don't think it would. Nichiren Buddhism has developed based on the writings that have survived through centuries, and we have the great good fortune that so many have. So, a master of metaphors. Above all, Daisaku Ikeda has made the most valuable contribution in revealing the heart of Nichiren's writings for the modern era. Again, Daisaku Ikeda, the president of the Soka Gakkai right now, I think he's 93 or 2 in Japan. He's off key though now, because he passed it on to the youth. It's us that need to take this up. We need to become our own senseis and our own heart, so he passed it on to us a long time ago. Trying to take every word of Nichiren literally is the mistake of a fundamentalist. Who in this modern era believes in the range of spirits and gods who Nichiren refers to in what could be considered literal terms? Perhaps Nichiren himself did not believe they actually existed, but much of his audiences certainly did, and he wrote to them accordingly. Nichiren's references to fantastical creatures and events such as the Calocula insect, which swells in strong winds, or the golden mountains that glitter more brightly than scraped by the boar. The golden mountains that glitter more brightly when scraped by the boar must be taken as metaphors for the challenges we experience in daily life. Ultimately, Nichiren set his own standard in how to evaluate and interpret his philosophy and writings. In The Hero of the World, one of my favorite letters, in The Hero of the World, written to Shijo Kingyo in troubled times, he writes, "Buddhism is reason. Reason will win over your Lord. Based on the standard of reason, which will change as society, science, and culture develops, Nichiren's writings will need to be revisited and revitalized in each era, something Daisaku Ikeda has led in modern times." How did Nichiren change? Returning to Nichiren's identity as a human being who fully revealed his most enlightened aspect rather than an inherent special cosmic Buddha, It is of value to look at the development of his thought and life to see that just as the Lotus Sutra and the Gohonzon underwent a process of development and refinement, so too did Nichiren as a teacher. Looking back on his life, Nichiren described how as a young acolyte at Shijuji, acolyte is like a training priest, he prayed to the statue of Bodhisattva Space Treasury and had a jewel of wisdom bestowed on him. Although it might traditionally be considered Nichiren gained his first enlightenment at this point, he acknowledged that despite that the insight he acquired, his understanding gradually developed in his teens as he studied the various sects in Japan, first at Shijoji and later around the country. In refuting Roikan and others, which was another letter that he wrote to the government, I believe, he described his studies of all the different schools, but states, "I found it difficult to resolve my doubts." By 1242, at the age of 21, Nichiren's nascent philosophy was taking shape. His earliest authentic writings date from this year, and not only focus on the Lotus Sutra as an important teaching, but emphasize the mystic law is characterized by the fact that the 10 worlds are mutually contained in each other. What the Lotus Sutra intends to teach us is that ordinary people is in truth a Buddha, because he is endowed with the 10 worlds. And really quickly, I think we may have spoke about this, or it's going to come in the book. We all have the capability of 10 worlds within us, from hell to Buddhahood. And Buddhahood's like 4 on from heaven, from a Christian perspective, by the way, which I loved. But yeah, from hell all the way to Buddhahood. But that means that if a Buddha, but it says it here, he was starting to realize, Nichiren, that even though we have 10 worlds, they are mutually contained within each other. So even though you could be in Buddhahood, the world of hell still is in that life state. And even in the world of hell, the seed of Buddhahood is contained in that life state. So what he basically fundamentally suddenly recognized is that Buddhas also are ordinary people, and as ordinary people have the potential to be Buddhahood. And again, to us as indigo children and stuff, this is kind of normal, but again, it's so different. And to be honest, there's pretty much every sect of Buddhism other than Nichiren, Shu or SGI still don't believe this. They don't believe there's no way that we could have the attributes of the creator or something like that. So anyway, by 1253, Nichiren was able to confidently declare his teachings, and this is evidenced in his 1258 writing, The Meaning of the Sacred Teachings of the Buddha's Lifetimes, which he declares that the Lotus Sutra to be the Buddha's ultimate teaching and purpose, while also identifying the Daimoku, which is chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, with the wonderful law and with the concept of the 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. That was a lot. That was a big one. In 1260, on reciting the Daimoku of the Lotus Sutra, again, one of his letters, he writes, "The 2 characters of Myoho of the Daimoku contained within them the heart of the Lotus Sutra. Therefore, the merit of chanting the 5 characters of Myoho Renge Kyo is great and immense." A new self-understanding. Nichiren's essential practice and philosophy were in place from the 1250s, but Nichiren's own sense of mission and identity was still to develop. His first exile to the Izu Peninsula in 1261 to 1263 gave Nichiren a sense he was living the persecutions predicted in the Lotus Sutra, and as a result, he was now practicing 24 hours a day and night. And that's from a letter called The 4 Debts of Gratitude. It can be argued, however, that Nichiren, at this point, considered himself to be a reformist Tendai monk rather than the creator of a new school. On returning from exile, he began to lead monthly lectures on the 24th of the month, the day of Tientai's death, on the latter's great concentration and insight. The Tatsunokuchi persecution of September the 12th, 1271, when he was taken to the shore to be executed, which is what we talked about earlier, is traditionally seen as the moment when Nichiren cast off the transient nature to fully reveal his Buddhahood. It was undoubtedly considered by Nichiren himself to be a defining point of his life and a transition to a radically new self-understanding that he was, without doubt, the votary of the Lotus Sutra for his time. And this is also our time right now. And remember, the Lotus Sutra is always changing and transforming. It's alive. The true heritage of Buddhism is always transforming. And so he recognized, I'm the votary for this time period, the latter day of the law. In The Opening of the Eyes, written during his first winter in exile on the inhospitable Sado Island, as a final testament to his followers in the event of his death, he writes, "On the 12th day of the 9th month of last year, 1271, before the hours of the rat and the ox, 11 p.m. to 3 a.m., this person named Nichiren was beheaded. It is his soul that has come to this island of Sado." Concerning this point as a new departure for his teachings, he later writes, "As for my teachings, regard those before my exile to the province of Sadao as equivalent to the Buddha's pre-Lotus Sutra teachings. In an essential sense, Nichiren's philosophy did not majorly change. So what we're talking about here is the idea that before he was exiled and the government really started to realize that this monk is really starting to cause problems, he was teaching a certain way. And he says it here: as for my teachings before I was on exile, regard those before my exile to the province of Sado as equivalent to the Buddha's pre-Lotus Sutra teachings. And remember, the pre-Lotus Sutra teachings, as we discussed in the last chapter about the Lotus Sutra, was like the Diamond Sutra, all the other sutras that basically all other forms of Buddhism are based on. And it is it was Shakyamuni's last 8 years that he said, drop all of that and focus only on the Lotus Sutra, which is my way of telling you that you are all Buddhas. So as for my teachings, regard those before my exile to the province of Sadao as equivalent to the Buddha's pre-Lotus Sutra teachings. So he's saying also everything I've taught you, basically consider it just me warming you up for the actual truth. In an essential sense, Nichiren's philosophy did not majorly change. This is like after he became exiled. Faith in key chapters of the Lotus Sutra and the chanting of Daimoku, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, were extolled before Sado. What really changed, Stone suggests, that's Jacqueline Stone, the scholar. What really changed, Stone suggests, is Nichiren's realization of his mission as the leader of the bodhisattvas of the earth, Jogyo, or superior practices, who, according to the Lotus Sutra, was entrusted by Shakyamuni to spread the Lotus Sutra in a later age. So he basically started to realize, do you know what? You tried to behead me. You couldn't do it. There's like orbs going all over the place. Maybe it's time I just accept my role. Like, I'm reading the Lotus Sutra and it's saying in the latter days someone's gonna have to come here and help bust the ting, and that's me. And he started to just clock it. He started to realize it. He started to accept it. He started to understand, he started to understand who he truly was. And in the Lotus Sutra, that person is called the Bodhisattva of the earth, Jogyo, or superior practices, who, according to the Lotus Sutra, was entrusted by Shakyamuni to spread the Lotus Sutra in a later age. In April 1273, on Sado, he writes in The Object of Devotion for Observing the Mind, now, in the beginning of the latter day of the law, the bodhisattvas of the earth have appeared in this world for the first time solely in order to bring the medicine of the 5 characters of Myoho Renge Kyo to ignorant people. Nichiren was no longer a self-perceived Tendai monk, initiating a new teaching to reform existing schools, particularly Tendai, but the creator of a universal philosophy distinct from any that had come before. The Gohonzon was developed on Sado, as were the doctrinal foundations to Nichiren's teachings, such as the 3 great secret laws, which are the Daimoku, that's chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, the object of devotion, which is the actual Gohonzon we chant to, which is a reflection of our highest life state, so that we're never confused and believing in external bodhisattvas and deities, recognizing that we are that, so that's what the Gohonzon is, and the ordination platform or place of practice, so what we would call our Butsuma, like make it like this place where we practice. Nichiren, never knowing when his life might end in the severe conditions of exile on Sado, poured his life fully into developing this thought and, in effect, establishing a new religion. After his exile, Nichiren, of course, did survive, and his final years were spent from May 1274 until just before his death in September 1282, secluded at Mount Minabu on the upper reaches of the Fuji River. This was by no means a hermetic life, as Nichiren gradually gathered disciples who resided with him at his new abode, and he continually encouraged the growing community of believers across the country through letters which further clarified his teachings. Interestingly, although Nichiren later wrote that he had decided from the outset to retire to the mountains, following the Chinese precedent that one should do so if one had admonished a ruler 3 times and not been heeded, a letter to Tokyo Jonin in May 1274 announces Nichiren's intentions to become a solitary wayfarer instead. So basically, there's a Chinese precedent that if you remonstrate with your government and the government like put a middle finger up to you 3 times, then stop. And so he was following that kind of, I guess, like East Asian kind of like philosophy. And so he in 3 times in his life, he truly remonstrated with the government, truly. And obviously, he almost had his head cut off, and he carried on after having his head cut off. But after doing it 3 times, he was like, I feel like my mission regarding being like the remonstrator was done. So he went to like retirement, I guess, in a sense. But like I said, it wasn't a hermetic life. He carried on to the day he died. A large proportion of Nichiren's preserved writings come from this time at Minabu, at like the last part of his life. As an ordinary human being who had manifested the life state of Buddhahood, he was not removed from the reality of the 10 life states, which we talked about, yeah, because he had them himself, and the natural sufferings of aging and sickness. On the 20th of January 1282, in the depths of the winter of what would be his final year, he wrote to his loyal disciple Nanjo Tokumitsu, who's one of my favorite. I think he was like 13 when he first met Nichiren, but he was super rich, so like he helped him out. He helped Nichiren out a lot. He wrote to his loyal disciple Nanjo Tokumitsu, assuring him of his father and younger brother's attainment of Buddhahood, yet acknowledging his own suffering and limitations. I love this part. So this quote here, which is from a letter called The Beginning of Spring, is what reminds me of how profound this man is, Nichiren Daishonin, but yet he talks as if he's a human being, which we are. And it's very rare to ever feel like you can connect to someone that you're so inspired by, and they're not like some transcended being. So this is from a letter that he wrote called The Beginning of Spring, which says, my clothes are thin, my food supplies exhausted. Nights I am no better off than the cold suffering bird, and in daytime I think constantly of going down to the village. The sound of voices reciting the sutra has ceased. My religious meditation grows thin, and I grieve to think that, should I falter in my practice and in this present existence, I must go on suffering. But with these gifts of yours, my life has been restored. And often whenever someone helps me out, or, you know, gives me a donation or something, there's only one way that I can often reply, because it means so much to me and people don't often realize, and that is by letting them know that like he says here, but with these gifts of yours my life has been restored. Like helping people out and like loving people, and like, you know, even if it's like, it doesn't have to be a donation, like it could be like someone's donating a book to me, or that just like a bus ticket. It's like, yo, you're allowing my life, and life is the most important thing in the entire universe. It's more important than all the treasures in every cosmos and everywhere. One day of life is that important. So if someone decides to support that, do you know how honorable and amazing that is? That's why it means so much. So next section, fully revealing his Buddhahood. Nichiren's unaffected humanity and unvarnished honesty regarding his life condition at the time are refreshingly honest. These are the words not of a special cosmic Buddha, but of an ordinary human being who did incredible things and achieved a monumentous life, but who still suffered like the rest of us. Nichiren is the eternal mentor with respect to the Buddhist teachings for members of SGI. One can even describe him as the Buddha of the latter day of the law, in that he fully revealed his Buddhahood in the most trying of circumstances, providing us with the example of his extraordinary life, profound practice, and encouragement based on great compassion and deep understanding of life. But above all, he remains a human being, equal to us in value and ultimately in respect. And that's the most important thing ever. He is equal to us in every way and in every respect. So a few more pages and then we'll do some freestyle. We've got 20 minutes. What is Buddhahood? And this is really important because, again, everyone always believes, what is Buddhahood? Everyone talks about it, the Dalai Lama, all these monks, and what is Buddhahood? Is it some like external place? Do I have to get an easy jet, or maybe not an easy jet? Do I have to get do I have to get myself into an ashram in India, and like, do I have to do I have to be ordained with like special holy water? How do I achieve this Buddhahood? And then afterwards, is everything blessed? Are my finances good? Are all my children blessed? It's actually, you know, that's the weak Western idea, Western way of thinking. That's what Buddhahood is. So hopefully they'll explain it better than I can. What is Buddhahood? In this chapter, we have looked at the humanity of Nichiren, but we have also acknowledged his revelation of Buddhahood, something open to all practitioners of Nichiren Buddhism. But what is Buddhahood actually, and how does one know when it is being revealed? Tatsunokuchi, which is where his head was almost cut off, was a big revelatory moment for Nichiren. Likewise, Second Soka Gakkai President Josei Toda experienced profound awakening experiences in prison during World War II. And yet, on the contrary, Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism is not about aspiring for these monumentous, revelatory, see-the-light moments, but an ongoing, more subtle revelation of the state of Buddhahood within our lives, filled with compassion, life force, courage, and the wisdom for all, not the awakening of one particular gifted individual. So important. The Buddha nature, strictly speaking, refers to one's potential for revealing the manifested state of Buddhahood. The Buddha nature concept was first expressed in the Nirvana Sutra, which was a sutra before the Lotus Sutra, which was probably compiled around 300 to 350 CE. Shin Yatomi, the late study department leader of SGI USA, described how the Nirvana Sutra uses the metaphor of yogurt and milk to exemplify the Buddha nature. This is really important. This is another highlighter. The Buddha nature is like yogurt, and people's lives are like the milk. The sutra states, I say that yogurt exists in milk because it comes from milk. In other words, Buddhahood exists within ordinary people, but requires cultivation just as it is required to turn milk into yogurt. For Nichiren, we activate our Buddhahood in any given moment immediately by chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. This was Nichiren's abiding and central tenet. In this sense, revealing our Buddhahood does not require some revelatory awakening experience. It is simply us at our very best, connected with ourselves and our environment, exuding compassion and vitality. In the daily guidance book for today and tomorrow, Daisaku Ikeda is quoted on the July 5th stating, and if you've got a highlighter, grab this part, it's super important. What does attaining Buddhahood mean for us? It does not mean that one day we suddenly turn into a Buddha or become magically enlightened. In a sense, attaining Buddhahood means that we have securely entered the path or orbit of Buddhahood inherent in the cosmos. Rather than a final static destination at which we arrive and remain, achieving enlightenment means firmly establishing the faith needed to keep advancing along the path of absolute happiness, limitless without end. Rather than a final static destination at which we arrive and remain, achieving enlightenment means firmly establishing the faith needed to keep advancing along the path of absolute happiness, limitless without end. And that's what we need to reveal our Buddhahood, my brothers and sisters, more than ever now, so that we can firmly establish the faith needed to keep advancing when everything, the third wave comes, Taliban invade. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's time to really activate our highest life state, because there's going to be waves and waves and waves of so much stuff. And Buddhahood simply means, take away from Buddhism, Buddhahood simply means your friggin' best self, like that you can be so strong like Mount Fuji, the mountain, or like a big yew tree with the deepest roots going down into the soil. I'm standing here and I won't be swayed by anything. That's when that it says it best here. In a sense, attaining Buddhahood means that we have securely entered the path or orbit of Buddhahood inherent in the cosmos. So you've activated that in yourself, and your environment will then keep you protected. So it's not like, you know, oh my God, I've reached like Sadhguru's ashram and suddenly like I'm here. I love Sadhguru, but anyway. Ikeda has never referenced himself having any overwhelming awakening experiences such as his mentor Jose Toda had, and I consider that all for the good. Extreme awakening experiences are undoubtedly valid, real, and beneficial for the individual involved. However, they are rare and provoked generally by dire circumstances, such as that of the popular New Age writer Eckhart Tolle, whose awakening manifested from essentially a nervous mental breakdown. These kinds of experiences place enlightenment outside the remit of our ordinary lives. Nichiren, through his teachings of immediate enlightenment, and Ikeda, through his writings such as The New Human Revolution, embody a radically different paradigm of Buddhahood, not placed on an exclusive pedestal for the rare few, but a Buddhahood found in all life and in all mundane, ordinary existence. Let me say that one more time, man, because we are ordinary people, man. I swear to God. These kind of experiences place enlightenment outside of the remit of our ordinary lives. Nichiren, through his teachings of immediate enlightenment, just by chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo and revealing your highest potential, and Ikeda, through his writings, such as The New Human Revolution, embody a radically different paradigm of Buddhahood. And this is not like any other kind of Buddhism. Even though I know everyone on this call is resonating, like, why wouldn't it be? It makes sense. But truly, it's not. Embody a radically different paradigm of Buddhahood, not placed on an exclusive pedestal for the rare few. How many times is like the lamas or the priests, they walk around or people drop to their floor and they've got deities and they're throwing roses at them. How's that going to help my mother, you know, who's like from the slums of South London, Mitcham? Come on. But a Buddhahood found in all life and in our mundane, ordinary existence. So, respect for our own Buddha nature. Shin Yatomi does, however, emphasize that one's approach to chanting is important, and that if we have a dependent, passive, or weak mind state towards prayer, whacking the gong with like a toothpick, the result will be less satisfactory. He sees our belief and respect for the Gohonzon must be in tandem with an equal faith and respect for our own lives. Like, if you're like loving the Gohonzon or loving Nichiren's writings, but you think you're a piece of shit, you're not going nowhere, because you don't recognize that the Gohonzon and Nichiren is you. So yeah, the Buddha nature within us is ultimately the fundamental object of respect, which is embodied in the Gohonzon. So when people are like, what is this Gohonzon? This is really clear to me, personally, crystal clear. It's not a statue of Shakyamuni or like a external god. The Buddha nature within us is ultimately the fundamental object of respect, which is embodied in the Gohonzon. Yatomi rejects any form of self-disparagement as counterproductive and contrary to the spirit of Buddhist prayer and faith. Nichiren makes it clear Myoho Renge Kyo is the Buddha nature of all living beings, and uses the metaphor of a caged bird to illustrate how Buddhahood manifests. Let me quickly, this is another one right here, get the highlighter. When you start activating yourself and rising up, when people around you start acting really weird, it's because you don't realize you're activating the Buddha nature in them as well. But if they're not doing nothing spiritual, their Buddha nature, say it was like a seed, like a lotus seed, it has to push through really dense mud, because we're transforming the mud, and it's like easier for it to come through. But regardless, if you're living in the house or your family members, you're chanting, the people that are, because we're all interconnected, the people around you, the Buddha nature in them starts to awaken. And that's why sometimes people turn like shit around you when you start to activate yourself. When you start to you step into yourself, people start getting weird, or it's because actually subconsciously the Buddha nature in them is starting to rise. But obviously, if they've got all these levels of karma and dirt, all of that has to come to the surface first. So actually you suddenly see that people are a piece of shit. But we're strong enough to be able to transform that. So anyway, this is how Nichiren says this. When we revere Myoho Renge Kyo inherent in our lives as the object of devotion, so we devote ourselves to our highest potential. That's all I devote myself to. I don't devote myself to no Sai Baba, to no priest, to no external deity. I devote myself to my highest potential. So that's all it means. Even though it can sound like scary, especially from the Western mind state. When we revere Myoho Renge Kyo inherent in our lives as the object of devotion, the Buddha nature within us is summoned forth and manifested by our chanting of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. To illustrate, when a caged bird sings, birds who are flying in the sky gather around. The bird in the cage strives to get out. When with our mouths we chant the mystic law, our Buddha nature being summoned will invariably emerge. The birds flying in the sky represent the Buddhahood inherent in the universe, while the singing of the caged bird is our Buddhahood activated. The synchronicity one experiences from Buddhist practice can also be related to this fusion with external Buddhahood in our environment. The cage may represent our ignorance or ordinary humanity manifested in the 10 life states. Yet we do not need to leave the cage of our ordinary existence to experience the joyful flight and song of our Buddha nature. And in this state, the cage doesn't have to be considered as a bad thing. It's just our cage, our physical body, our ego. So I believe we've got about 2 more pages. Who are the bodhisattvas of the earth? Our identity as Buddhas is manifested in seeing the universal Buddha nature in ourselves and others and working to awaken it in all people. So you can't go around thinking you're a Buddha if you don't recognize that every single other person around you has that same potential. Otherwise, you're not practicing Buddhism. So our identity as Buddhas is manifested in seeing the universal Buddha nature in oneself and others and working to awaken that in all people. This self-conception as ordinary people manifesting as Buddhas goes in parallel in SGI philosophy with the idea of SGI members as bodhisattvas of the earth. The concept of Nichiren as an original Buddha has diminished in emphasis in SGI culture. However, the teachings that those who practice and share this teaching with others have a profound karmic relationship to it, based on a fundamental identity as bodhisattvas of the earth, has developed in recent years. It has come to great prominence since the split with the priesthood and is frequently referenced to in Akida's writings. The Nichiren Shoshu priesthood consider only Nichiren to be a bodhisattva, and that's, remember, the Nichiren Shoshu priesthood, that's the other kind of people, not like the SGI. They believe in like the magic Daigahons and that like we don't have any power. And like we just have to serve Nichiren. Totally distorted way of seeing true Buddhism. So the Nichiren Shoshu priesthood considered only Nichiren to be a bodhisattva of the earth, and that the laity, that's us, and the priests are the followers of the bodhisattvas of the earth, marking a further fundamental difference with SGI. Nichiren writes, and this is Nichiren himself, if you are of the same mind as Nichiren, you must be a bodhisattva of the earth. So if you resonate with what Nichiren's saying, he's saying you too are a bodhisattva of the earth that was called by Shakyamuni in the Lotus Sutra. So the bodhisattvas of the earth feature in the Lotus Sutra, appearing in the 15th chapter, pledging to propagate the teachings of the Lotus Sutra in a future muddied and evil age. Unlike heavenly bodhisattvas described elsewhere in the sutra, they dwell on the earth and literally emerge from it. Dignified and inherently enlightened, they are described as Shakyamuni's original disciples. The concept of Soka Gakkai members as the bodhisattvas of the earth was an essential aspect of Josei Toda's philosophy for the spread of Nichiren Buddhism after the Second World War, and was furthered by Daisaku Akida, his successor, across the world. Nichiren's statements regarding his own status without doubt clarify his mission as a votary of the Lotus Sutra, yet he is not always clear regarding his role as a bodhisattva of the earth. In encouraging his disciples, he is more explicit, stating that there are no bodhisattvas of the earth apart from him and his followers, and that if one can chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, one surely can be a bodhisattva of the earth. However, conceiving ourselves as these beings from the remotest past can be a conceptual challenge if not unpicked. Recalling our examination of the Lotus Sutra in Chapter 1, the first aspect to understand is that the emergence of the bodhisattvas of the earth was not an actual event that happened somewhere in the past. It was an allegory for the workings of our own lives. Nichiren writes in The Object of Devotion for Observing the Mind, which is a letter that he wrote, how the Lotus Sutra is a metaphor for our life condition, and writes regarding Shakyamuni of the Lifespan chapter. He was speaking of the world of bodhisattvas within ourselves. The bodhisattvas who emerged from beneath the earth are the followers of Shakyamuni Buddha present in our lives. As a result, our identity as bodhisattvas of the earth is less a fixed karmic inheritance than a state which can be activated when we chant, but most importantly, when we also share the commitment to spread the teachings in a similar vein to the pledge that the bodhisattvas of the earth made to Shakyamuni in the Lotus Sutra. Being a bodhisattva of the earth in SGI is therefore not an automatic entitlement, but a conviction and a choice based on a shared sense of purpose with Nichiren and the three presidents of the Soka Gakkai. In doing so, we manifest the expansive life state of Bodhisattva and Buddha in our own lives, and we join in our own ceremony in the air when chanting in front of the Gohonzon. Being a Bodhisattva of the earth is an active choice which involves commitment, not a fixed status we are automatically endowed with. Now, this is the final chapter, paragraph, and again, if you feel guided, please highlight this part, because I've read this 4 times in the part today, and I kept on reading it because it hit me. So, the decline in religious sentiment in the West seems to only be increasing, with the majority of young adults in 12 European countries having no faith. 12 European countries having no faith. A wide variety of reasons can be attributed to this trend. One factor could be considered the irrational contradictions within a religion which just do not wash for the majority of the populace in a scientific age. For example, even in those who do practice Christianity in the UK, a quarter profess to not believing in Jesus' resurrection from death. There will always be some wonder and mystery regarding the universe. Its mechanics may be fully fathomed, but the big why, the reason for existence in the first place, may forever be unanswerable. Yet, religion, while delving and communing with this mystery, must keep an eye on unverified claims that in the present age just seem daft. Nichiren, as a cosmic eternal Buddha, could be put into that category. Nichiren embraced a unique mission and fused with the eternal Buddha nature of the cosmos, but the inspiring part of his story is so can we. So, what's the time? We've got 8 minutes. So thank you for staying with me. 17 souls. It means the world. I appreciate you so much. Again, quite deep. But next time you're chilling in like Weatherspoons having a beer, you can tell someone you know about original enlightenment now, and and all of that. So yeah, let me just quickly read another bit of guidance for today. Then I'll freestyle for a second, and we can chant for 5 minutes if that's all right. So again, September the 1st. You can't really see it, but for today and tomorrow, this is a daily encouragement book that I try and read every day. So this is for the women, the mothers right now. So it says, a mother's belief have a powerful influence on her children. In the realm of Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism too, the children of families where the mother's faith is strong invariably develops into admirable adults. So I love that, man. Simple. If you're a father right now or a mother, just make sure that the stronger you make yourself, the stronger your children are going to be. The more you work on yourself, the stronger your children are going to be. The more you become your authentic self and stop listening to the media, stop listening to your friends and your culture, what your parents say, and you start creating brain to heart coherence, your children are going to benefit. You know, I don't have children yet, but there's no doubt best I don't, because I'd be the strictest dad on the planet, I think. And but like the more we it's what I was saying earlier about the cherry and the blossom and the damson and the peaches. The more we recognize and step into our own unique talents and our own, like, follow your heart, man. Like, the world's getting so crazy right now. Of course, I'm not saying like you have like take both feet out of Babylon and start living in a forest, and like, you know what I mean. But really start to have faith in the universe. Like for me, for instance, I feel so protected, and I've always felt so protected. But of course, I'm worried about what's coming, what's to come. You know, there's going to be a lot of transformations in society and stuff like that, let's just say, but I have no fear, man, because I've always been protected, and I don't doubt that that's suddenly just going to just change if everything just stops. So what I am saying, and I'm saying it to everyone, and I'll say it to all of you, my family right now, is like, just try and really work on like doing what your soul wants you to do, and you will be supported in ways I'm experiencing it right now. Like, my dreams are very slowly starting to manifest and are starting to come together, and I'm seeing how all these different people are playing very different roles. And the most fundamental thing that I can say about that journey for me is I'm just being so honest and real and vulnerable with everyone in my life, because when you become like listen, all of us, we're bodhisattvas, whether you like it or not, by the way, but we are all shining mirrors, yeah, because I know that I can feel, I speak to most of you, I know that we are all people that work on ourselves, we go inwards, we try and like, make sure that the mirror of our life is polished. Most people in society, their mirror, which represents their life, is all tarnished and it's dusty because they're doing nothing to polish it on a daily basis. But the more that we polish our mirror, the more that we shine. But of course, what happens, I always say it, if there's dirt at the bottom of a cup and then you're pouring loads of water in to shine and to be the best version of yourself, all that dirt and sediment has to come to the top, and then it has to be addressed before it can overflow, and then only pure water comes. So if you want to get into spirituality, especially Buddhism, be prepared to become strong like a tree, because spirituality ain't none of this Instagram funny stuff. Like, it's not just about like, like going, and trust me, it is as well. Like, I'm that guy. You'll catch me in the forest with 2 feathers in my hair. Woo, 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 woo. Like, that's me. I love all that, like puking up Cambo, I might do some psychedelics. That's me. But like, that's just a small thing. You know what I mean? Like, we have to really work on something on a daily basis to like just like purify our lives. And like, I'm going off track, but remember, the more that we shine, the more that we become like our real authentic self. That means we're honoring the true Buddha within, and that means the Buddha's coming out more, and that means that more people are going to feel frustrated by you, and because you're representing everything they don't. Like, I've lost a lot of friends in the last 2-3 years where I've become more and more attuned with who I am, because suddenly they're like, oh, like, what, you don't want to like be smoking weed around the back of like the Revolutions Club anymore? And I'm like, well, I kind of want to read this book this evening. Like, I don't know, man, like, you know what I mean? And so the more that you step into your true self, yeah, you might go through a bit of a purging, because you have to let go of everyone that you've been with for the last few years, but then I swear to God, you will start to manifest your true soul family. And it might be difficult at first, because a lot of us, we have intense energies, but just be your most honest, and just start to be honest with yourself first before you try to do anything, because everyone lies to everyone, man. And like, most relationships are just stupid and fail because the person doesn't even love themselves, and they're trying to love their wife, and they don't even realize they don't even love themselves. That's the thing. They don't even realize that they don't love themselves. They think they do, but they don't realize that they're actually living what Boris Johnson wants them to live, or what their father wants them to live, or you're just going down like blindly going down this way. When you start to really listen to yourself, start to honor yourself, I promise you, my family, everything changes. And by the way, yeah, the people that are around you, yeah, some people will disappear, and then some people might be a bit frustrated because your mirror is so pure, and they just want to be taking ketamine in the back room, and you're here like vibrating off your nuts, and they don't want to be around you anymore because like you trigger them. So some people will disappear, but then some people will then go through their own human revolution, and they will start to vibrate and meet you at that level. And just know this as well, let me remind you, I promise you, because it's so important, what is meant for every single one of you, all 17 of us, what is meant for us will never ever miss us. You need to have that faith. What is meant for us will never miss us, and what is not meant for us will never enter our orbit. You need to know that. So even if something damn dark comes into your orbit, it was meant for you. It was something you need to experience, however dark. And trust me, I know people have gone through dark things, and it's hard to how do you like, it's like, what do you mean, man? Like, why do I deserve to go through this? Well, as a Buddhist specifically, you got to take responsibility for your entire life, whatever that is. Anyway, I'm going too deep. What's the time? Alright, I'm going to chant for 5 minutes, so we're going to go over 8 o'clock, but if you feel guided to be with me for the 5 minutes, of course, let's do that, and then I will love you and leave you, and I know that I'm going to get in bed and watch the Peep Show and order some. I'm changing my karma, so I don't want to eat meat no more, but I'm going like, it's like the last year, whenever I feel sad, and I haven't ate meat for years, like, and then like 2020 came, and like whenever I was going through something sad, I caught like the little boy inside me, that missed my father looking out the window. Where's my dad gone? Like, he's outside the chicken shop, and I'm like eating loads of chicken recently, like chicken, and not just like organic chicken. I'm talking about the dirt. And so I'm going through my own karma. So I'm saying that to you because everyone thinks like for my birthday, for instance, everyone gave me like dark chocolate and stuff and like really healthy food. And I'm like, I respect it, but they think that I'm some high vibrating person. Nah, man, give me that dirty fruit and nut and some chicken, you know. I'm not there yet. But so I'm saying this as in like, be an ordinary human being. Don't try and transcend where you're at, honor where you're at and love it, because I know I'm a good person, man, and I know I don't agree with factory farming, but I also know that my grandma used to teach me to eat the marrow in the bones. So if I want my children to be a vegan for life, I have to honor the process myself slowly and not do it because some girl told me to or some Instagram post. So all I'm saying is just trust your life. Like, trust your life. That's the one thing I'm hearing the most recently. Do you trust your life? Because I trust my life, man. I know I could be in Milan on Fashion Week with no money. I could be here. I could be anywhere. As long as I have that, I have that strong connection with my heart, and I can hear my heart, and I know it's my heart that I'm listening to. I ain't worried about nothing ever. I promise you. Ain't worried about if Armageddon's coming, nothing. I'll be good somewhere like farming chickens. Like yeah. Anyway, 5 minutes and then I will love you and leave you. Let's do this. I'll chant quite slow. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, 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 Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho 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 Renge Kyo. Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho 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 Renge Kyo. Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho 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 Renge Kyo. Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho 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 Renge Kyo. Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho 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 Renge Kyo. Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho 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 Renge Kyo. Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho 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 Renge Kyo. Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho 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 Renge Kyo. Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho 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 Renge Kyo. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, 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 Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho 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 Renge Kyo. Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho 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 Renge Kyo. Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho 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 Renge Kyo. Renge kyo nam yo ho, renge kyo nam yo ho, renge kyo. Renge kyo nam yo ho, 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 renge kyo. Renge kyo nam yo ho, 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 renge kyo. Nam yo ho, renge kyo nam yo ho, renge kyo nam yo ho, renge kyo. Hey, what? 17 people still here? Yeah, swear Dizzy down. Yeah. Lorenzo, I love you, bro. Your hair's looking amazing. Listen, one thing I just want to say. A lot of people say to me, "How does this chanting work, man? I don't really understand it." And I remember there's a metaphor. A baby doesn't ask the mothers what nourishment's in her breast milk. She just suck upon the tea and it receives the nourishment required. And it's the same thing. We don't need to overthink this. Just experience it. And just like the baby doesn't need to know what nourishment is in the breast milk, it will receive everything that breast milk needs to give to that child. So I love you. Thank you, everyone. Jessica, Chris, Alice, someone on an iPhone. Thank you for being here. Joanne, Mandy, Sharon, my sisters from many lifetimes. I love you. Thank you so much. Angelina Moore, my number one day one studier. You're clearly a strong bodhisattva. Sally Smith, the absolute treasure tower and queen. Sophie, my sister, clearly. Big Joe, I love you, bro. Looking absolutely gang. Like, just, yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. And Jessica, thank you. JM, Jamie, I love you. Hopefully see you next week. We'll start talking about what Namyo Horenge Kyo is. So, peace. Yeah, peace should be like this, by the way, not split. And I love you.